My name is Natalie Adams, 28 years old. After 3 years of marriage, I finally got pregnant. To ensure a safe delivery, I decided to go back to my hometown to give birth. Thanks to that, I was able to deliver the baby safely, and I felt relieved both physically and mentally. 1 month after giving birth, I returned home in a car driven by my brother Chris. However, when I got there, I found my husband, Mike, his mistress, Mary, and a baby about 6 months old, who had completely taken over my house.
Hey, long time no see.
My husband greeted me with a smile but didn't say, "Welcome back." Instead, he said,
I'm cutting ties with you and the kid. Let's divorce.
That's when he shoved the divorce papers at me. And he didn't even let me inside. He handed it to me right there at the doorstep. Mary was holding her baby and laughing.
We're done talking. You can go back now.
Go back. At that moment, I wasn't holding my baby. If I was coming back home, my baby should be with me. But I wasn't holding it, which was strange. Mike didn't even notice that our baby wasn't there. He really doesn't care about me at all. He never had even the slightest bit of interest in me. I met Mike 4 years ago. It was through a dating app. Chris said that anyone you meet on those things is no good, but since I had no other way to meet people, I had to rely on it. In today's world, it's common for people to rely on those apps, so I didn't think it was strange. That's what I thought. Above all, after reading Mike's seemingly sincere profile, I convinced myself he couldn't be a bad person. It was a long-distance relationship, so we couldn't meet often, but we talked on the phone almost every day, repeatedly saying, "I love you." The constant communication made it feel like we were together, and I was truly happy hearing his voice until I fell asleep. How we would plan the wedding. Where we would like to live once we were married. We talked about how we'd spend our days and how many kids we wanted. All those conversations made me happy, even though he hadn't even proposed yet. Where should we live after getting married? Mike, you have your job and I have mine. I don't want to live far from my parents. What worried me the most was where we'd live after getting married. I had a very close family, and I couldn't imagine living far from Chris. He was always there to help whenever I needed it, and he had been my hero since childhood.
Then you don't have to worry. My job has a branch over there too. If I put in a transfer request, it should go through.
Really?
Yeah, for you, Natalie, a transfer is no big deal.
He was willing to change his life for me. And just like that, as soon as our marriage was decided, he moved over. But there was a major miscalculation. It was his job. Before we got married, he said he'd already put in a transfer request, so it would be fine. But after getting married, I found out he wasn't working at all. What about your jobs?
I don't have one.
Why? Didn't you transfer?
Oh, I did put in a transfer request, but they fired me, saying it was ridiculous to ask for a transfer just because of marriage.
What?
It couldn't be helped. I was willing to give up my job for you, and you wanted to be with me, right?
Mike made it sound like he had sacrificed everything for me, and I couldn't say anything. But in reality, I couldn't believe he was fired just for that. Could it be that he never had a job in the first place? The word freeloader popped into my mind. But I was too afraid of losing him to confront him about his lies, so I played the role of the good wife, saying, "You can just find a job here, right?" However, he became complacent and didn't look for work at all. Then in the 3rd year, I found out I was pregnant. This will surely motivate him to step up as a father. He's bound to change. I spent my days with that hopeful thought. But 6 months into my pregnancy, he grew colder and began hinting at divorce. Suspecting something was wrong, I looked into his actions and, sure enough, discovered he was having an affair. The other woman was someone he met on a dating app. But since I was pregnant, I didn't want to make a big deal out of it and risk putting stress on the baby. So, I chose to keep quiet and not say anything unnecessary. Despite my efforts, he didn't care about my feelings at all.
I threw away all your stuff. Just sign the divorce papers already.
He said this with a smile on his face. You threw away all my stuff.
Yeah, all of it. Clean them out. Your things were just in the way since she and our son are going to live here.
You mean even the jewelry in my jewelry box?
Yeah, that too. Those fakes were worthless anyway.
How could this happen? Collecting jewelry was my hobby, and some pieces were quite valuable. I remembered a time when Mike found them and asked about their value with bright eyes. Realizing it could be trouble if he knew their true worth, I lied. That's exactly what I thought. They're all imitations.
Imitations?
Yeah, it'd be great if they were real, but that's impossible. This diamond is glass, and this red stone is fake too. They're all just a few bucks each.
What? They're just toys then. That's garbage.
Yeah, but they're still important to a woman.
What a joke.
He dismissed it, and the conversation ended there. Since then, no matter what jewelry I wore, Mike would smirk at it. If he knew they were real, he'd either sell them for money or give them to another woman. No way. But that lie backfired. Even though I told him they were important to me, he threw them all away as trash. The shock of losing those things hurt more than the betrayal or the divorce. It wasn't about the money. It was because those items held so many memories. There were items I bought with my first paycheck, things my parents gave me for my 21st birthday. Some of the items were gifts from Chris. The shock of having my memories thrown away left me speechless, but then Chris put his arm around my shoulder. It felt like he was telling me to stay strong. Even though Mike and Mary were laughing at me, Chris spoke up.
Cut ties? Mike, you can't get a divorce.
What do you mean I can't get a divorce? That's impossible.
Well, because you and Natalie are already divorced. Don't you remember?
What are you talking about?
Oh, that was right after Natalie went back to her hometown. You came over to my place, completely drunk.
Did I? I don't really remember that.
At that time, you threw divorce papers at her, telling her to get a divorce because your mistress had just given birth. You don't seem to remember that, do you?
Oh yeah, that's right. My son was born, and I was so happy that I brought the divorce papers over.
I had heard from my sister that you might be cheating, but I didn't expect you had a child with her. And for her to give birth while your wife was away giving birth herself, that's pretty unbelievable.
When a woman says she wants to have the baby, it's a man's responsibility to step up, especially when it's a boy.
Whether it's a boy or a girl, taking responsibility is a given. But having a mistress and a child while your wife is pregnant, that's the height of irresponsibility, isn't it?
Come on, Chris. You're a man, so you get it, right? It's better to have a son than a daughter.
What are you talking about?
No matter how much you love a daughter, she'll eventually be taken by some other man. Spending money on something like that is a waste. They're worthless. But a son, he'll take care of you in old age, and men earn more money too. There's nothing better than having a son. Raising a child just to give them away to someone else? That's the ultimate waste of time.
What a horrible thing to say. He married a woman, had her bear his child, and then refused to accept the child unless it was a boy. It made my blood boil, but Chris just listened without arguing.
So, when I brought the divorce papers over that time, you just went ahead and finalized the divorce, huh? That's convenient for me. So, we've already been strangers for a while now.
Mike and the woman laughed gleefully. Then he added,
What a fool. Getting divorced before the child was born means I don't have to pay child support. Well, that works out for me.
He laughed loudly.
That's unfortunate. A child born after a divorce can still have child support claimed if the parent-child relationship is recognized. Didn't you know that?
But that's only if I acknowledge the child, right?
You're well informed. Yes, that's correct.
I'm not acknowledging anything. Why should I claim a kid that was born without my say-so, especially when I'm not even sure it's mine?
A DNA test will easily determine if the child is yours. If you refuse to acknowledge and pay child support, we'll have to go to court.
Court?
I don't need your acknowledgement. Listening to Mike, I couldn't stand it any longer and refused to have him acknowledge the child. If my daughter knew her father was someone like you, it would only make her sad. So, I don't need your acknowledgement or your child support. She's my daughter, and no matter what happens in the future, don't you dare claim to be her parent.
What a fool. Even if you're working, raising a child is expensive. And you're saying you don't want the money? Well, that's just fine with me.
Money isn't a big deal.
How can you say that? You don't even make that much, do you? Life isn't that easy.
Too bad for you, I make plenty.
You've got to be kidding.
That's why I didn't nag you to get a job. Even without you working, I had more than enough income.
More than enough? How much are we talking?
About $20,000 a month. That's the minimum.
What? You were always at home.
It's a job I can do from home.
I thought you weren't working.
If we were both unemployed, how did you think we were surviving? That would be impossible.
But $20,000 a month.
That's why I'm not asking for your acknowledgement.
Why didn't you tell me you were working? If I'd known.
If I told you, you wouldn't have even bothered to look for a job. You'd probably just start begging for an allowance. Even without that, money was disappearing from my wallet.
Are you accusing me of stealing? You think I'd do that?
There's no one else I could suspect. But I didn't want to doubt my own husband, so I kept quiet until now. I had a feeling that's the kind of person you were.
Damn it. If I had known you were making that much.
And what would you have done? Well, Mike was extremely frustrated, but I couldn't understand why. He had a new wife, so he shouldn't have any reason to feel so upset.
Yeah, that's right. Everything's fine. Mary here is working too, just like you, and she makes a lot of money. Isn't that right, Mary? Tell them. You make way more, don't you?
But something seemed off about Mary. Her eyes were darting around. Something's definitely off. It wasn't just me who thought that. My brother seemed to feel the same way.
If she's making that much money, then we won't hold back either.
What do you mean?
I'm talking about throwing away all of my sister's belongings. We can't just let that slide.
That stuff was trash.
It might be trash to you, but it was important to Natalie. You threw it all away without any notice or permission, so that's destruction of property. We could go to the police, but that wouldn't be fair to the kids, so we'll settle for compensation.
Why does it have to be like this? You're rich, so you don't need any of that.
It's not about being rich or poor. There were sentimental items in there. Plus, the jewelry Natalie had was worth tens of thousands, even hundreds of thousands of dollars.
That's a lie. She said they were all fake.
I only said that because I was afraid you'd sell them off or give them to another woman.
If I'd known, I wouldn't have thrown them away.
You would have just sold them instead.
It's your fault for lying. I'm not paying anything.
Then we'll just have to go to the police.
If you do that, our child will be left without a father.
Natalie's child doesn't have a father because you took him away.
Fine. I'll pay.
And you'll pay for the emotional damages too.
Yeah, sure. Mary's making good money, so it's not a problem.
Wait a minute. You're the one with the higher income, aren't you?
Me?
Yeah. You said you were making $400,000 a year. That's way more than I was making, and you said that's why we could live comfortably. You told me you were making that much, so I quit my job.
What? Why did you quit? You never told me that.
Because we were having a baby. If you're making that much, it made more sense for me to quit and be a full-time mom. That's what's best for the child.
You didn't have to quit.
I couldn't help it. I moved here because I wanted to be with you. That meant I had to quit my job.
You didn't have to quit. I could have moved to where you were.
You were making much more money than I was. It made more sense for me to quit. And once we had a child, I'd need to focus on them, leaving no time for work.
This sounded just like what Mike had said when we got married. He said he would move here so we could live together. He assured me it was fine because he was getting a jobs transfer. But that transfer was a complete lie. Just like that, Mary's claim of a high income was probably a lie too. Maybe she lied about her income just to be with Mike. Moving was just an excuse, and the truth is, they were both jobless. It's like a game of deception between two tricksters.
What have you done? I thought you were working and making good money. Quitting your job like that, what were you thinking?
Why are you so panicked?
It was clear that Mike was counting on Mary's income, just as Mary was counting on his. This was getting interesting. I decided to reveal the truth about Mike being unemployed.
What? Mike's unemployed? He's a freeloader?
That's right. In the 3 years we were married, he never had a real job. And he's still not working.
No way, then everything he told me was a lie.
Looks like you were deceived.
What are we supposed to do now?
You should get a job. You were making $200,000 a year, so you could probably make the same if you found a similar job here.
Well, it's not that easy. I only made that much because of my previous boss.
What kind of work did you do?
Well,
she became flustered, unable to name the industry or provide any details at all. Was she unemployed too? Or maybe she just worked as an office clerk or something like that?
Well, what kind of work you did doesn't really matter to us. Just pay up. And leave this house.
Leave the house? Why?
This house was bought by our parents. They let Natalie live here for free because she got married, but now that she's divorced, it's only right for you to leave. We're planning to rent it out.
Then why not rent it to me?
It's going to be expensive. Can you afford it?
Expensive? How much?
The rent will be $3,000 a month.
That's way too high. There's no way I can afford that.
Rent prices are set by the landlord. If you think it's too high, you don't have to rent it.
There was no way those two, both unemployed, could afford such high rent, so they had no choice but to vacate the house. But when it came to paying compensation and damages, they refused. That's when Chris played a recording from an app on his smartphone.
Here's a recording of you admitting to the affair during your marriage. It's more than enough evidence for court. And about the child, you admitted it's yours. That's also recorded, so we'll submit this as evidence too.
When did you?
It's part of my job to record important moments.
Part of your job.
Chris is a skilled lawyer. We'll definitely win in court.
You never told me that.
I didn't need to.
Why didn't you tell me?
There was no need to tell you. Whatever my brother does for work has nothing to do with you.
A high-earning brother, huh?
Even if he makes a lot of money, it doesn't matter to you or to me.
You were a real catch, weren't you?
Leaving a dejected Mike behind, I walked out with my brother. A while after returning to my parents' house, I got a message from Mike saying they had moved out. They had moved into a cheap apartment. I figured they were getting along well enough, but one day Mike contacted me again.
I can't find a job.
As if that had anything to do with me. Why are you telling your ex-wife about this?
Because you're the only one I can vent to.
Venting to me won't help.
Come on, just hear me out.
Feeling sorry for him, I decided to listen.
Mary keeps nagging me to get a job.
Well, you're unemployed, so it makes sense for her to tell you to work.
You never nagged me like that.
Because I had enough income.
That's true. I'm looking for a job, but I just can't find the kind of work I want.
What kind of job are you looking for?
I'm smart, so I want something prestigious.
He claimed to be smart, but in the 3 years we were together, I never once thought he was intelligent. What do you mean by prestigious job?
Yeah, maybe a lawyer or something.
Without any qualifications?
Or maybe a banker.
You can't even do basic math.
That's just because I haven't been motivated. If I put my mind to it, I can handle any complex calculations.
Then why did you go ahead and do it?
Yeah, that's why I'm looking for those kinds of jobs.
I see. So, how's your child doing? I decided to change the subject because Mike was being so ridiculous.
Oh, the kid.
What about the kid?
Well, Mary says something's wrong with him.
Wrong? How so?
She says he doesn't smile back when she smiles at him. He doesn't make eye contact, and he doesn't respond when she calls his name. I think she's overreacting.
It's her first child, so of course she's worried.
She was so insistent that we took him to the doctor, and they said it's Rett syndrome.
Rett syndrome? I haven't heard of that before.
Yeah, it's a disease that mostly affects girls, so I don't get why our son has it. Your kid should have been the one to get it.
What a horrible thing to say.
It doesn't make sense for my kid to have a disability. There's nothing wrong with me. It must be something in Mary's family.
Is it genetic?
Who knows? But it's close to autism, so maybe.
You shouldn't make statements based on your assumptions when you don't know.
It's got to be true because there's nothing wrong with me. The medical bills are piling up, and this kid is like a curse. I was so happy to have a son, and now I'm stuck taking care of him forever. If I'd known, I would have never had him.
This man is truly despicable. So your wife can't work now?
Yeah, that suits her just fine. She never wanted to work anyway. Now she has the perfect excuse to stay home and take care of the kid.
That's not a fair way to talk about her.
But isn't that what's happening? She said she could make good money if she worked.
And you believe that?
Of course, she said that when we were dating.
Then why don't you take care of the child and let her work?
You manage to work while taking care of your child, don't you?
Well, yes. I'm a single mom, so I have to.
If you can do it, then Mary should be able to as well. So why should I be the one taking care of the kid?
Oh, I see. I couldn't help but feel relieved that I had left this man. Mary taking Mike off my hands was the best thing that could have happened. Talking to him was pointless and a waste of time. I'm busy, so I'm hanging up.
Wait, I didn't just call to complain. I need your help.
Help?
Yeah, I'm out of money. Can you give me some?
What? Are you serious?
It's your fault I'm broke.
My fault?
Yeah, because of the alimony and damages you demanded.
That's just the consequence of your own actions. Why don't you realize that you're the one at fault? Instead of blaming others, why don't you get a job? I slammed the phone down. After that, I didn't hear from Mike for another 6 months. Thanks to that, my days were calm and peaceful. I occasionally heard rumors about Mike, and I thought he was probably doing his best. But then, out of the blue, Mike contacted me, disturbing my peace.
Hey, Natalie.
We're not married anymore, so there's no need for you to contact me.
Don't say that. I reached out because I need help.
Are you working?
Everywhere I've looked doesn't seem to appreciate my worth, so I'm still looking.
That's not something to joke about.
Yeah, I know.
Why don't you try being honest with yourself for once? If you can't find a job that fits your worth, maybe you should just take a job at a factory or something.
Actually, I did find a job.
Oh, really? So you're working now?
Yeah, kind of.
What's the job?
A food truck.
A food truck. Can you even cook?
You just have to throw something together.
What kind of food are you selling?
Well, tacos, I guess, and drinks, of course, plus ice cream and pizza.
That's a random mix.
I just picked things I thought everyone would want to eat.
It sounds like he either lacks originality or has way too much of it. Either way, it doesn't sound appealing. You'd think he'd focus on one thing, but this is typical of Mike's thinking.
But getting a food truck costs money, you know? I figured if I'm going to do it, I should get a new one, so I went all in and got a loan.
Can you even pay that off?
If I sell, I'll make money. Some people make $10,000 a month, so there's no reason I can't.
Such a naive approach.
But no matter what I do, I can't sell anything. Maybe it's the location. If this keeps up, they'll take the truck. If that happens, I won't be able to work. So please, help me out.
No.
You don't even know what I'm going to ask yet.
You want to borrow money, right?
Exactly. But this time, I'm not just asking for a handout. You'll lend it to me, right? I'm asking you to lend it constructively.
No.
Why not? I'll definitely pay you back.
I don't think your haphazard approach is going to turn a profit. I'm not lending money to someone like that.
Why not?
Because the way you're doing things isn't good business.
That's not true. I can already see success. It's just that the loan is weighing me down, so if I could just get rid of that, I'd be fine.
What about your child?
My child.
Mike hesitated, and I could tell something was wrong.
Actually, we got divorced.
What? You got divorced even though your child is sick? Why?
Because it was too much trouble.
What do you mean by too much trouble?
You wouldn't understand, but having a sick child is a lot to deal with.
Of course it is, but that's part of having a child in the first place.
That's not it. Having a kid like that just makes life harder. I don't even know why I'm working anymore. All the money goes to hospital bills, and I don't see the point in working. And after all that money, he doesn't even smile. How is that fair?
It's a part of the disease. There's nothing you can do about it.
That's why you don't get it. You're raising a healthy kid. I'm working hard every day, but it all goes to hospital bills. On top of that, Mary keeps saying there's not enough money. Isn't that messed up? Shouldn't she be praising me for working so hard?
What kind of sweet talk is that? Of course not. You're a father. It's your responsibility to work for your child.
I thought so too at first, but when it's just constant fighting every day, I can't take it anymore, so I kicked them out.
What kind of man are you? You're supposed to help each other as a couple, but all you care about is yourself.
That's not true. If you help me out, I'll work hard for you. So about that loan.
Pay your own loan. After that, Mike couldn't pay off the loan, and his truck was auctioned off. However, that didn't cover the entire loan, so he still has to pay off the remaining balance. Additionally, he's accumulated more debt for materials and rental fees for the location. On top of that, it seems the company he signed the contract with was shady, and now he has to pay a hefty cancellation fee. The amount is so large that there's nothing he can do but cry, even though crying won't solve anything.
And that's how it is.
Crying and drinking isn't going to change anything.
I know, but who would have expected things to turn out like this? If you'd lent me the money back then, I wouldn't have fallen this far.
Are you still blaming others? Maybe it's time to realize that blaming others won't help. Why don't you admit your own mistakes? You abandoned your child just because they didn't benefit you, didn't you?
Of course, if the kid's not a plus for me, why should I have to raise them? Mary understood that and agreed to the divorce.
But you're still paying alimony and child support, aren't you?
Yeah, that woman. She's demanding not just alimony, but also $800 a month in child support.
Well, that makes sense. There are hospital bills, and she probably can't work full-time.
But Mary moved back to her parents' place. They can help her out, right? So why am I the only one suffering? Come on, help me out. Let's get married again.
He's so unbelievably foolish. It's not even worth discussing. Thinking about Mary and how she's struggling with a sick child, I realize that even with all that, she's probably better off without this pathetic excuse of a man. After I rejected him, Mike disappeared for a while. I heard a rumor that he's being chased by some dangerous people, but no one knows where he is now. As for me, I'm living peacefully with my parents, brother, and my little daughter. We're financially stable, and I look forward to watching my child grow every day.